Let's see, Friday's Guardian now, and this is the story which I think it's fair to say actually dominates the front pages. The Rwanda asylum seeker plan has come under fire from various sources.
Yes.
It's Andrew.
I mean, so this is in The Guardian, and it's talking about, I mean, it uses the word inhumane, but there have been all sorts of responses from various politicians about the Boris Johnson's plan to process migrants in Rwanda. And there are, I mean, for instance, just to give a few examples here. So, for instance, Ian Blackford, the SNP, has described it as evil. Ross Greer, the Green Party.
Vile and evil.
Vile
I thought
and
he was
evil.
going to say Elvis next.
Yeah, well, he was doing anagrams, wasn't he, at that point? Ross Greer from the Greens has said Britain is governed by truly evil people. Alex Cole-Hamilton, a Scottish Liberal Democrat, said that this is a dog whistle to the hard right. But you see, whenever we get into these immigration discussions, it becomes very emotive, understandably so, because these are people who are obviously very vulnerable. And so I understand that. But how helpful is this kind of language and rhetoric when we're talking about migration? I'm not
I
so
don't
sure.
think evil or vile is very helpful, but it has to be said this is quite a dramatic and provocative suggestion. I don't know whether it's going to come off, but I did watch Mark Stein on this very channel earlier discussing it and making some intelligent points. And I have to admit, until he went through the numbers, I hadn't realised quite how fast it's been escalating. In only 2019, when in the middle of that year, when Boris Johnson was campaigning to become, to get a decent majority in Parliament, there were less than one migrant a day coming across, on average. Less than one a day. Now we're well into thousands, a year, and it's becoming very... it's escalating really out of control.
Well,
I think people want to see something dramatic done rather than just sort of shrugging.
And I think to just dismiss that as xenophobia from the people who are concerned about this is very short-sighted. And the government, what the government is saying is what they want to do is distinguish between economic migrants and asylum seekers. And the people they're talking about processing there would come into the former category. 9 out of 10 of the migrants that came over last year were young men, likely to be economic migrants rather than asylum seekers. So these things do have to be talked about.
Which is not to say we might not want them. We might want them, but there are proper channels to go through rather than channels to paddle across in a rubber dinghy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm supportive of economic migrants and what they bring to the country. I'm also very supportive of asylum seekers. I think we have a great tradition of helping people in need, and I wouldn't like to see that lost. But I would like to see a discussion about the details. It's all being clouded by tabloid rhetoric so that we can't really get to the heart of it.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm a big Keir Starmer fanboy, and we just saw him a second ago just in a clip saying how, was he saying that this government has no answers, but my question, what is Labour's solution to this? Let's have some other options. I'm not saying this is the right one, but I'd like to see what's on the table.
And I'm no Keir Starmer fan, but I will say on this issue, this has escalated ridiculously on Boris Johnson's watch. This is not like something that's been kicked into the long grass repeatedly by successive administrations. This has ballooned absurdly in the last 3 years under a government which essentially was elected very much on the back of Brexit, which you have to say, at least part of that was against the freedom of movement. Well, if instead of freedom of movement, you've just got like huge convoys of ribs paddling and steaming across the channel, that's no better, is it?
Well, they're also saying that this could be dangerous because a lot of people coming over on the boats are going to want to do it before these laws come into force.
Yeah. What about Rwanda? We spent a little bit of time on this, but Rwanda is interesting because, as again Steen said, if you ask most people about it, what's the first thing that flashes into your mind? Hutus and Tutsis, right? An absolutely horrific outbreak of a sort of medieval genocide. But apparently it is a much improved place. It has strong links now with Britain, which it has sought directly. It was never part of Britain's colonial project, but it sought to be part of the Commonwealth, which I didn't even know you could do that, but apparently you can apply for that. Yeah. We've developed very strong cultural links. It teaches cricket in schools. By all accounts, it's not a bad place at all. It kind of sounds... when you first say it, you've got Rwanda, but apparently it's not so bad.
Well, it sounds like you're saying Vietnam or something like that. It sounds like, but I mean, the government is making that point that actually for people to settle and develop there are opportunities there for, that it isn't just let's get rid of foreign people, and that's the way it's obviously
train them to look after the mountain gorillas for a start. That would be nice, and they probably get on a David Attenborough documentary. I think it's one. It is. There's a lot of wildlife protection plans going on over there.
Well, that hasn't been mentioned so far.
But anyway, I do think it's a much more interesting than at first sight. It just sounds absolutely barking, doesn't it? It sounds like something that, the classic dead cat. But I think there might be some legs to it. I don't know.